Welcome back to Role Models with me, Rich Crowley. Today's guest, Oren Cohen, is a writer I've admired for a while, and we started this conversation talking about social media, having patience in publishing, and it evolved into talking about the debt that millennials carry, talking about ways to nurture creativity and avoid burnout. So I'm excited to share what this conversation became with you. If we're going to talk about creativity, it's only fitting to share a practice that I really credit with allowing me to cultivate and nurture creativity in my day, and that's meditation. Partner of the show, Half Moon Yoga and Meditation, has made this such an easy and sustainable practice. When you have a cushion, when you have a dedicated space that you're going to meditate in, it excites you and kind of makes you want to meditate just a bit more. As an added benefit of the practice. And also golden root turmeric latte mix, caffeine free, sugar free, alternative to coffee, alternative to afternoon teas when you just want something with more flavor than water. Golden root, I am incredibly grateful that you believe in what this show is doing. So thank you, thank Half Moon, and thank Oren Cohen. I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Oren Cohen, thank you for joining me on the Rough Draft. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Now, we started connecting almost a year ago, I think, over email. I had read some of your work, reached out to you, and since then I've been able to follow along on Medium, but also see where you are off the platform. The one thing, though, I'm not as familiar with your origin story. When did you start writing? When did you start publishing? When did you learn Medium was a destination that you should be putting your work out
on? So I started writing on Medium in February of 2019. I was writing on my own blog a lot earlier. I mean, like since 2016, I had a WordPress blog of my own. It didn't actually go anywhere. I was writing mostly for myself. I didn't consider myself a professional writer, if that makes sense, back then. And then I actually got familiar with Medium through a friend, which I needed to help him with a draft. He sent me a link to a draft on Medium. I really liked the outline and how you can add like comments and stuff. But I didn't actually. That was back in 2018. I didn't actually join Medium back then, but I kept it in my head that this platform was really nice. And then in February 2019, I got introduced to the platform again through Shonta Grimes, which I'm on her email list. And then she back then she was sending emails like almost every day. So one of her emails caught my eye that she started writing on Medium, and then she was making money from it. And I was like, hey, I know Medium. I'm familiar with that name. So yeah, I joined back then, and my first piece over there was actually just to try out the platform, just to see how it is. It's still actually live. It was even before curation. And then the second piece that I published was a guide that I made from work, because I work in software engineering. And I made a professional guide about some GIS service that I used to work with. And that got curated in software engineering. That was my first piece on like an actual guide. It was curated in software engineering. And then they sent me an email that they opened the feature for me to send pieces for review. That was back then. It was like not even a standard thing. They turned it on like for specific users. So that's how I started. Since then, that's history.
What had to happen for you to begin seeing yourself and thinking of yourself as a professional writer? You had said you write, I write as a hobby and I write for me. What switched for you that made you say, I am a writer?
Okay, so that was for me. I think everyone is different. For me, that was a little journey that I did with myself. Um, on January 2017, I finished a professional writing workshop in Israel in Hebrew. And then I actually started exploring writing in Hebrew. So I started like another blog in Hebrew, and I was publishing short stories on my Facebook page in Hebrew for my friends. And a lot of them over the months that passed, a lot of them told me, "Listen, you should do something with this. You're really good." Um, so I was actually like I was trying to make it happen. I have like a fantasy world that I'm working on for like 8 years. But then like something clicked and I said, I want to write fantasy and I want that story. I can only think about that story in English. And then I actually geared towards writing more in English. Um, so that was like the thing that happened, that was like the switch that allowed me to tell myself, listen, you're enough. You're enough to be a writer. You're enough to be whatever you feel you need to be in this writing world, because your writing matters. Yeah.
I was familiar with, like, I went back and read some of your early writings, and I know some of the publications you have. So it's been impressive to see you continue to expand the topics that you do write about. And recently, really writing a lot about anti-racism and educating readers. Another thing I admire is how well you use social media to distribute your work. And I have a couple questions in that arena. One, starting with, I know you're active or involved in either a Facebook group or LinkedIn groups where writers help support each other. What's that experience like?
I think it's more an experience of building relationships, which I think for every writer is extremely important. When you have that someone that you can talk to about your pieces, about your ideas, about whatever it is that goes through your mind, and it's not just yours, it's not just living in your mind. It's a completely different experience than someone who is just writing on their own, because once it's shared with someone, it's real, it's out there in the world. It's so basically for me, because I had some issues with procrastination, and I wanted to find that commitment, to find that social accountability, and for a lot of time, that was the driving force around me publishing in social media. Um, my earlier tweets, I think I'm on Twitter from 2010, and a lot of my tweets back then were uh, not related to writing at all, but I had like a short period of time that I wanted to try affiliate marketing or something like that. Um, I didn't take off with that. That wasn't working for me. So yeah, but I used mainly I used Twitter for that. And then just Twitter became like a thought machine. The switch on Twitter was that moment when a friend of mine who is a writer, he has like in Israel. He has like, I think, more than 100,000 followers, and he's anonymous. He's not like he has like a pseudonym. No one actually knows who he is. I know his face, but I don't know his name. Um, so um, he told me that he used Twitter to actually perfect his writing, and I asked how. So he told me like that limitation of back then it was I think 160
Yeah.
characters. Yeah, so that limitation made him become more creative about what he writes and how to cut words that do not matter. So I thought about that, and that was like genius. So I started
Hmm.
doing that. Yeah.
It allows you to eliminate unnecessary words. You know, if you want to
Yeah.
say the window is open rather than saying there's a breeze in the room because the window's open, you have to shorten it. So it's like an exercise. It becomes a tool, but as well as an exercise. When
Yeah.
you're distributing your work on social media, I know you're on TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Are you pushing your writing across all of those, or are you just having fun on some?
Okay. So TikTok is a new thing. TikTok is an experiment. I'm not. I'm just going to try TikTok for a while, but it is fun. Um, I think the most how do I say this in English? I think the most useful or not productive, but let's say useful. Um, the useful element of social media is actually putting more eyeballs on your work. And for me,
Mhm.
that doesn't really matter where they come from. I use a tool that maybe you're familiar with. It's called Zapier.
Okay.
And that allows me to automate and save time by pushing publish on my blog, and then it distributes my work over my chosen social media channels. Um, the thing is that you can't just distribute your work online just like that. You need to actually customize the message, because whatever you put on Facebook, whatever how the context that you put it in is not going to be the same as the context on Twitter, for example, because
Mhm.
on Facebook you can be more like you can be lengthier in what you write. On Twitter, it's short and sweet. If people don't get your message immediately, they're just going to gloss over your tweet, and it's going to die. Um, Same goes for other social media. I mean, Zapier also posts my blog posts to Tumblr,
Mhm.
for example. Um, TikTok is more like an experiment in like how to be more presentable, because sometimes
Mhm.
like I thought about it. I had one TikTok that I did that was like a writing tip, because I saw a lot of people putting actual value in TikTok. I mean,
Mhm.
there are lots of TikToks that are just lip sync and all that. It makes you laugh, and it's
Yeah.
fun. It takes hours of your day, um, but there are also lots of valuable TikToks.
Mhm.
There are lots of like whether it's cooking or just some tips about how to use TikTok better
Mhm.
or other stuff. It's like condensed information into a minute, and that's
Mhm.
incredible to me. And the same idea like Twitter. I mean, if it's going
Just be-
to yeah, if it's going to increase my creativity in some way or teach me something new, I'm just going to try it.
That's
So
it's right. You know, I'm on TikTok and I follow some of the just fun accounts purely to entertain me. But there's also some marketers that will teach Facebook ads, that teach branding in 40 seconds, and they say, hey,
Yeah.
here's this one quick trick. Great, because it's not overwhelming. You can only fit one or two things in that minute, and I can then, as a viewer, apply that and come back for more. So I'll pace you on TikTok and see you on that platform and see how much we can learn. I want to take a quick break, but before we do that, I've been curious to ask you, what's your experience using Patreon with your writing?
Okay, so Patreon is, I think a lot of people that try Patreon, they think about it more like a crowdfunding platform. And I don't agree with that. I think that Patreon is more a platform to allow your super fans, if you want to call it that, to actually show their support for you. Um, the reason is that you never actually have like a one-time goal. You have goals that it's like they help you with your life. I saw on Patreon before I joined, I researched the platform and I saw what other writers, authors, creators are doing there, and there was like a lot of goals that creators were putting. Like, if I have that amount of money, I can buy a new pad to draw, and then my the quality of my drawings is going to increase. And that's amazing. I mean, that's like something that people do to increase the quality of their art. And so for me, joining Patreon was like, I think that creators should be allowed to live the life that they want. And for me, that is like, if I use Patreon to support my efforts of writing, and not like what I'm doing right now, which is working as a software engineer, for example. I mean, writing is the place I want to be. Software engineering is where I am at right now. Uh, and I think Patreon can help me get there, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, Patreon is totally a platform for like people that want to show their support for you. And the way to do that is by giving them early access, and also um, showing them stuff that you're working on as pure ideas, for example, or even going further than that and allowing them to choose what you're going to create next. You have like a bucket list. I mean, one of the things I want to do when my Patreon is going to be bigger, because it's pretty young right now, is I want to allow people to choose what type of concept in my fantasy world they're going to help me create. Like cities, characters, stuff like that. And
That's engaging.
that, yeah, that's amazing. And once you know, as a fan or as a supporter, once you know that you helped shape something, you are part of something bigger. That's something that you walk away with, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. That's something that you don't forget. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm not on Patreon, but I see it popping up a lot, and was just curious to hear a writer's experience on that. So that is encouraging and reason to investigate it a little bit more. I was curious if you have a piece that you've written that is your favorite. It doesn't have to be the best performing, it's just that one piece that you love the most.
Okay, so I have a piece. It's actually not my best performing. Um, it's it's actually an interview. Um,
Mm.
it, it's a piece that I wrote. Um, I think it was when I was visiting my brother in Texas last year, 2019. Um, I was introduced to the PR person of College Humor.
Hmm.
And through College Humor, through that PR person, she introduced me to a person that I like to call my best friend, called Brennan Lee Mulligan, who is a dungeon master in a show called Dimension 20. And I really like that show. I'm a super fan of that show, and I got to interview him for an hour and
Wow.
ask a lot of questions about writing and storytelling and the show. And that was my, aside from being my favorite interview, that was my first interview ever, um, and it was amazing. It was incredible experience. I was like, uh, I can't even describe it. It was so fun, like 45 minutes of joy, pure joy. And then I had to
Oh,
transcript it. So that was
that's
not
so
so fun.
rewarding.
But
I'm gonna have to ask you to send me that so I can read it, but also to link it into the show notes. That's a warming story, and I'm really glad you got to experience that.
yeah,
One of
since
the
then I
pieces.
actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 please.
I actually interviewed him in March again, but this time it was a video interview, so that was even more fun.
That's a really cool thing that you guys have been able to develop. Um, I want to check out that one as well. The piece that, is a bit of a departure from some other things you've written, but you wrote one called "The One Mistake College Grads Literally Can't Afford to Make." And you talk about budgeting and how important that was. It's such a it's like a taboo conversation sometimes to say, hey, are you saving money? Hey, are you sure you can afford this? And you talk about using credit cards as if it's real money, and accumulating debt. um, do you Are there some just like one, two, three steps that you would just tell all of your friends about budgeting?
um, I think a lot of my budgeting knowledge come from real life experience. I had a lot of experience with paying debt over the years since I was released from the army. So I think it was more what life taught me was really what influenced me to write those pieces, because I know that there are people right now over the world that don't know how to finish their month, and they're staying up all night to try to figure that out. And if I can impart on them some form, like a short tip that they can read in 3 minutes, that will actually change the way that they deal with their money, then I did my job. Because I know what it's like to not know how the next month is going to look like financially.
Mm.
And yeah, I think it's super important. And a lot of millennials like me are in the same situation. So yeah, that's like it's a subject close to my heart. We call it like that.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing that and also writing those, because debt can be crippling, and financial insecurity is a real thing that is an unpopular subject to have conversations around, especially with friends or family, and especially with times where it's say a couple friends say, hey, let's go out to dinner at this restaurant. And you're an individual at that moment who's like, I can't afford a $90 bill tonight. But how do I say that? How do I tell my friends no? Because then my friend might say, I want to pay for it. And it's a conversation that I am glad you're having in your communities. And I think I can learn from it as well about how to introduce it to my community. With some other pieces that I loved of yours, you talked about realizing that you're a slower writer than most. And this was in a blog called
Yeah.
I Stopped Writing Daily Posts and Survived to Tell the Tale.
Yeah.
Young writers, new writers, listen up. There's a lot of material and a lot of courses and classes that say write every day, post 3 times a day. You're a slow writer. You decided to stop posting every day. You're still here. You're still writing. Is this an outlier survivor tale? Should other writers heed this warning as well? What was your experience writing daily to now saying, it's okay if I don't publish every day?
So I think the first thing that people should know is that the world is not going to end if there will not be a publication of yours within a block of 24 hours. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you don't publish every day, because the thing is, if you're putting out pieces out there out of stress, out of making it happen, then you're not actually putting value out there, and that's what we're talking about. Because when I just want to publish something and I do it because I have to, then no, it's not going to work. It's a piece that no one will read, and I will regret writing later because it doesn't really provide anything. But when I do give myself that opportunity to experience life and maybe even like do something between those publications, then I will find material to write about, which is more valuable to people. There's another piece I wrote that's called "How to Deal with Writing Burnout," which is like a sort of continuation of that piece. It deals like with the same kind of topic that people like don't really have the energy to write. So I think that's extremely important, that people don't come to writing from that perspective of like, I have to write every day. If I don't do it, then my stats will fall, and all that jazz.
What you said about stepping away from the keyboard can sometimes do more for your creativity than staying at the keyboard. And I find this when I go for a short bike ride. I'm 5 minutes into the ride and I'm incubating a new idea. Or I dedicate time to read a book every day. Not a full book, but even if it's just a chapter, because it takes me away, but I also get to study, subconsciously studying the words. Oh, hey, that's a new word I didn't know. Oh, and it gives your mind a little bit of a break. So I'm glad that you've encouraged people to do that. You had mentioned, please.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to add, like, if people want to actually delve into that, into studying that more, that thing that if you step away from the computer and it brings you more creativity, there is a very good TED talk that I saw that actually like birthed the idea. It was about the default mode or something like that. I don't actually remember the exact name, but the basic idea was that when we do something monotonous, am I saying that right? Yeah. So yeah. So when you do that, you actually bring your the state in your mind to a default state, which is like when you're always focused on one thing, or like dealing with switching context, which is a term from my day job. So when you do that, like every day, you're always focused on doing something, and you're not just staring out the window, or like you said, going to ride a bike, which is something that you don't, at some point, you don't actually think about yourself riding the bike. That encourages your mind to go through a phase that is like doing a cleanup, and then it's like that's the clicking. Like people say sometimes that they find their idea in the shower. So that's exactly that. That's the default mode that our brains go to, and then you're like solving problems. That's the thing. You're solving problems when you're not thinking about them.
I'm gonna have to find that TED Talk and include that in the show notes, because it seems like a valuable resource that everyone could get some use out of watching. One thing you've done, I've noticed, is you have decided to publish some of your best work in your own publication rather than give it away to some of the larger ones. Why? What's the experience? What would you say to other writers who are considering keeping all of their writing in their own publication?
I think that it comes from a place of diversifying, because I think that at the end of the day, I'm publishing a lot of my work in my own publication because I've already created a body of work, if that makes sense, which is out there on Medium, on different publications. I still do publish on other publications, like that piece that you mentioned earlier in Better Marketing, that was published recently. So I do publish in other publications as well, but I do want to create that space, which is an extension of my own blog on Medium, because I think that's super important that you have like your own home, if that makes sense. It's like when you write on other publications, then you're doing good work, you're getting more eyeballs on your work, but people don't really realize where to find you. So I have like a very good piece published in the startup, but if I don't work on my bio, for example, and put a link to wherever you can find me, and self promote myself, then you're not going to find me. You're going to read me, and you're going to be happy or whatever with my work, and in case you're curious about me, you're not going to find me there, because a lot of the publications consider the product as the article. The article is the product. And you don't have the opportunity to make that product your own once you publish on other publications. So I think that it comes from a place of diversifying, that you like publish on other publications, but also build your own home.
I like that. Build your own home. I might title this episode that. That's such a, and it's a great place to also bring this conversation to a close. I know we'll have an opportunity to do this again, but I think, like TikTok and Twitter, we want to only give out so much information at a time so people can digest it and apply it, and then we can return to it. But for those who do want to follow you and engage with you, where is the best place for them to go to begin discovering your work and keep in touch with you?
So the best place to find me is on my home on the internet, which is thegeekwriter.com.
Okay.
That's actually where all of my work lives, whether it's work that I publish on Medium or links to my Patreon or whatever. my home on the internet, my main place is that blog, and that's where I publish my work first before it appears anywhere else.
And will that have all the links to any newsletter and any social media that people can follow you along with?
Yeah, that has like everything.
Fantastic. Well, Oren, thank you again for coming on the Rough Draft, for sharing everything you've learned these past couple of years. I'm excited to keep in conversation both on and off the platform. Hope you have a great night, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was
it's a pleasure. It's really good. I wanted to do it for a while, and I'm glad we're able to make this work.